Alrighty, ladies, let's see here. What time is it? Ask
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 your
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 auntie.
hey, hey. Let's see here. It says, "Hey, aunties, do you truly enjoy sex? I love the idea of sex. I love sexuality and being feeling hot, sexy, and desirable. But when it comes to sex, it's just not it. I'm 27 and I think I've only had around 4 or 5 pleasurable encounters, fueled by weed or poppers. I had sex last night and I just felt so out of it to the point I started wondering if I'm actually asexual, homoromantic? I never heard that term before.
Yeah, I haven't heard
Homoromantic,
that
huh?
one either.
Maybe I need a real connection to enjoy myself, but it's really hard at the moment for me. Have y'all ever felt this way? Do you really enjoy sex?"
Can I start actually?
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually thought once upon a time I was asexual because I didn't have the desire to be out here in the streets like or have a whole phase and be part of what a lot of people experience in their community is just on that app, swiping and clicking and tapping and all the rest of that stuff with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, honestly, I thought there was something wrong with me because not no shading anyone else, but I was always kind of envious of how my friends could mentally get through all the stuff in my head that was screaming, "Don't do that," if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so the longest time I thought it was asexual, then I started understanding more about asexual. And it wasn't that it was my sex drive that wasn't there. That's how I came to understand about being demisexual. And it's more about that spiritual, like that emotional connection with someone that actually gets me sexually attracted to people and actually just attracted to people in general. So that's why I now identify as demisexual because it's not about a person's sexual orientation. It's literally about like that energy, that spiritual, like emotional connection that you have with someone. So it doesn't matter like whether it's a man or a woman for me. I'm not bisexual. But if I connect with you on a certain way, I'm going
Then
to
it
have a
starts to rev up
relationship.
those
Absolutely.
juices. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'm into it all. Like I'm into literally the whole spectrum, but it really boils down to that emotional connection. And once I started focusing on the emotional connection and only having sex in those moments, I actually started enjoying sex a lot more than I ever did before. And that's why even in my current relationship, with Fizz, like I was grateful that we took the time to have an emotional connection because it allowed me to actually open up and want to even be that much more sexual with him now that I have that connection. So I would honestly say, don't focus necessarily on trying to be sexual with someone. Try to connect maybe emotionally with someone first and let that be, the fire starter to maybe taking it to something sexual.
I like that. Dewan.
Hmm. Um. Do I enjoy sex? Yes, I do. Um.
I'm with you too.
Like yes, I enjoy it. Um.
It was the eyes. The eyes been set it up.
You're right.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't say that to like downplay others
Right.
situation. Like if you ask the aunties gonna tell you I enjoy sex. Yeah. um but that being said, this notion of you know understanding and appreciating sexuality and things that are sensual in nature and blah 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 blah, and then not necessarily enjoying the physical act of sex. um I can understand that there's there's a break between those two things. They don't have to be, they can be and they don't have to be mutually exclusive, let's put it that way.
Right.
And so it's just like you know your your gender and your sexuality are mutually exclusive. They're not dependent upon one or the other. And so I do think that there's, when we talk about like this whole thing about, the spectrum of like the gay experience and even of like any of these kind of like esoteric kind of terms like sexuality or sexual um prowess or whatever. There's a spectrum, and any person can be on any point of an extreme or within middle, and fluctuate, depending on what's going on. Um, the way that I keep thinking about this is like a couple of things. Either A, you're spot on in that, maybe the notion of sex, like being asexual, is where your lane is, or some degree of that. Or, maybe there is something about the sex that you're having that isn't enjoyable for you, and maybe it's about figuring out what kinds of way can you express yourself sexually and get some kind of satisfaction out of it. So I don't know if that's exploring some of the kinks of things, maybe playing a little bit more into foreplay,
Mm-hmm.
and as opposed to, because I don't know, like, based on this, this community member said they've had like 4 or 5 pleasurable encounters that were fueled by weed and or popper. So maybe there is some kind of inhibition that is unlocked, when you have something that allows you to kind of get there. And because I know a lot of people are very cerebral,
Yeah.
when they even just thinking about sex. And I've had, like, there are certain moments, like early on in my, like, I was like in my 20s or whatever, where there were certain things that I had in my head that I was just like, I'm not gonna do, I'm not gonna enjoy, I'm not gonna da 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 da. And it took a long time for me to unpack why I was feeling those things, and to give into that, and not having my identity or my sexual expression with that other person be defined by the act. And
Yeah.
so, for example, I remember.
Oh Lord.
I can't. I'm not gonna say that one, but
Oh, you gotta
there's
save
another,
that one.
there's
Why? Because
another
they have short
situation.
hair and sideburns. Is that why you're not gonna say it?
In the sunscreen room.
I'll give you an example. I was having sex. This was a long time ago. I was having sex with this guy, and this was a person that was very much into performative sex, where it's like flip positions. We need to be on the bed. Need to be in the bathroom. Need to be like all over, just doing a whole bunch of stuff. And
Yeah.
I remember at one point in time, this individual, put their foot on my head, trying to do some moves, but I'm
Yeah.
just like,
He said brand new dance. We don't know what to call it.
it's over. It's a wrap. You got to go. Like, and
And
I
you know
just
how
share that
Dewan is with dirty feet.
Hey, but even with clean feet, don't put your feet on me unless I put them,
On me.
right here. So,
Oh, mama, you need to watch on YouTube.
so I say all that to say that there could be something very cerebral that's going on that you just maybe haven't unpacked. And maybe, the fact that you've had a couple of sexual encounters that were pleasurable to you, that you found them to be pleasurable, means that the devices that you use, weed and poppers, allowed you to get to that space where you can find it enjoyable. And so, I would perhaps explore a little bit of that. And you may even want to consider getting a sex therapist. We
I
talk
was
about
just gonna
therapy
say
all the
that.
time,
Mhm.
but maybe there's an opportunity for you to connect with a sex therapist. And it's not to say that anything's like wrong with you emotionally, but they can offer some advice around things that are specifically targeted to the areas where you're feeling, like you're not getting the most enjoyment out of that. And if that's something that's desirable for you, because I'm assuming you're asking the question because you want to, get some desire or get some pleasure out of sexual intercourse with someone else. It's just it hasn't happened, is what I'm
Yeah.
getting the sense. What do you think, Carell?
I too enjoy sex. You guys nailed it. And I feel like, and we've said this like in just different kind of iterations throughout the history of the podcast, is just like sometimes I think we have this idea that every time you have sex, it has to be this like on 10 moment. Like, and you kind of hitting on it, like the performative part. And it's not necessarily that every time. Yes, there's sometimes you're like, woo, that was woo. Clearly we was both in it today, shit. You know? And there's other moments where you're just like, oh, we both clearly just need to kind of get off and go about our day kind of thing, you know? And that's fine. And I think that's part of the conversations a lot of us were never taught, kind of, quite frankly, because like either you saw it through porn and it's always this extra moment or whatever it may be. But I would hope at least at minimum you get some enjoyment out of it, and maybe it's speaking what you like. Maybe it doesn't have to be penetrative. Maybe it doesn't have to be certain things. Find what you like and be vocal about that. And I think that's another thing that, at least for myself, I've learned over time is just being way more vocal about. Nah, that part of it doesn't really get me off as much. It's like it's fine, but this. Yeah, you do this right here, bitch.
Do more
You
than
know, right? Do that again.
That's right.
And I think that's fine. And helping your partner or partners or whatever it is know what you really want and exploring that and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you find out that you are on that asexual spectrum, that's okay too. You know,
100%.
And sex, I would say if you're trying to get into if you like the relationship part of it, making sure you kind of vocalize that at the beginning. Because if you have someone that truly does enjoy sex and that's a key part of what they want out of the relationship, you might be butting heads and things like that throughout the course of the relationship. So making sure that you're vocal up front of saying, hey, I might fall in this asexual spectrum. This is what I do enjoy. This is what I don't enjoy. This does nothing for me, et cetera, and kind of being vocal. And sometimes I find that might be the hard thing, especially early on in relationships. But yes, I do love sex. But I also enjoy the sensuality. I love the tease. I also love, there's a layered approach. It doesn't always have to end with penetration and things like that. Yeah. So in my mind, maybe the term sex is maybe a little broader. I don't know if it's broader in my mind, but there's just more to than just the penetration and things like that. I guess in my book that I also to enjoy the foreplay and things like that of it. So
I love what you said about them trying to figure out and articulating what it is that they like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do feel like there is a lot of pressure, particularly for gay men, just because we have access to so much sexual visual imagery and conversations, and even when you're talking with your friends, it's like, oh yeah, I was you get all the tea, and like it's very hypersexualized. It can be, and that can be a little bit it can cloud one's vision around what it is that you as an individual likes. And I love that piece of advice about trying to figure out, because even I'm going back to what they wrote and said, maybe I need a real connection and enjoy myself. That is a real thing.
Exactly.
And that is a very real thing. And having somebody that you're hooking up with, even somebody that you're dating, if you're not really feeling them, but you're like, oh, they're cute. Well, I don't know why I'm not really crazy attracted to them, but they're cute, and I guess I will go ahead and have sex with them. I mean, we've all I think a lot of us have been in those shoes before, but if you're the type of person that requires, for you require, a certain level of emotional connectivity in some way in order for you to feel vulnerable enough to, to engage in sexual behavior, because it's a powerful act, but it also is an act of vulnerability. I think there's something to be explored.
Yeah, if y'all saw my history of people based off emotional contact, you'd be like, Jarrell don't got no type. You'd be like, this person?
I ain't got no type.
Like, I'm like, let me tell you. Sometimes that emotional connection just it really is. And you just be like, damn.
Yeah, it hits different.
It really does. It really does. And just trying to plug it in, girl. So,
but then sometimes just to plug it in moments too, though.
I mean, you be glad, don't you?
Plug it in. But I like that question, and honestly, especially like Dewan mentioned, just like especially in like gay culture, everything can be very hypersexualized. That like taking a step back and saying, do I actually like this? Do I enjoy this? Do I, what?
Yeah.
Like, you don't hear that question too often because a lot of times you're just so engrossed in it that sadly, maybe not sadly, but like it is what it is kind of thing sometimes. But taking the step as like reevaluating, what do I like? Do I still enjoy sex? And if so, why do I? And what do I? And where do I? And things like that. So,
And the killer part about it is a lot. It's a lot like even medicine. It's trial and error. You
yeah,
know, so
that's true
like
too.
for a person who hasn't had a lot of sex and
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
sex that they did have, it wasn't really enjoyable. That
Yeah.
becomes really challenging because it's just like, well,
That's
damn, every time I do it, it's, you know,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
You almost
but
get a negative connotation to it.
yeah, but again, that's why I go back to, you know, the advice of, you know, focusing on the things that one does like.
Yeah,
Like I think that's pretty appropriate for everybody. You know, the more
yeah,
that you can, if there are aspects of sexuality or sensuality or whatever, you know, a physical connection that you enjoy, whether it's getting a massage, whether it's, you know, having somebody blow in your ear,
ooh,
whether it's, you know,
This
putting your foot on
bitch.
somebody.
Ooh, look, she over here, ooh and I.
Right. I mean, you know, do more of
Said,
that.
I ain't got a voice, but I can say ooh.
ooh. I can say ooh, oh.
Ooh.
No, that's good. I like
That's
that.
But
a
I
good
hope
question, though.
this
That's a
helps.
good question.
That was a very good
Yeah.
question. So continue to send your questions to aya@minoritetyreport.com or DM us.